Elastic energy utilization is one of the most important and least understood aspects of human movement, and skipping rope is a direct way to train it. When you jump rope, your body is not relying primarily on muscular contraction in the way most people think. Instead, it's leveraging the natural spring-like properties of your tendons, especially the Achilles tendon, along with the connective tissues in the foot and lower leg. Each time your foot makes contact with the ground, there is a rapid loading phase. During this phase, the muscles and tendons are stretched under tension. Rather than dissipating that energy as heat, a well-trained system stores it momentarily in the elastic tissues. Almost immediately, this stored energy is released in what's called the rebound phase, propelling you upward into the next jump. This entire process happens in fractions of a second and is known as the stretch shortening cycle. What's critical here is efficiency. If your body is good at storing and releasing elastic energy, you don't need to rely as heavily on active muscular effort. That means less fatigue for the same output. In practical terms, you can move faster, jump higher, or sustain activity longer while using less energy. This is why elite athletes appear to move so effortlessly. They are not just strong, they are elastic. Skipping trains this system in a very specific way. The repeated rhythmic bouncing reinforces proper timing between the loading and unloading phases. Over time, your tendons adapt by becoming stiffer, which might sound counterintuitive, but in this context, stiffness is beneficial. A stiffer tendon can store and release energy more effectively, much like a tighter spring will snap back with more force. There's also a neurological component. Your nervous system learns to reduce unnecessary muscle activation. Beginners often jump too high, land too heavily, or tense muscles that don't need to be involved. With practice, the system becomes more refined. The jumps become smaller, quieter, and more economical. This is a sign that elastic structures are taking over more of the workload. Another important aspect is ground contact time. Efficient elastic movement is characterized by very short contact with the ground. The less time you spend on the ground, the more effectively you are using stored energy rather than generating new force from scratch. Skipping naturally encourages this because the rhythm of the rope demands quick, consistent rebounds. This has direct carryover to activities like sprinting, jumping, and changing direction. In all of those movements, the ability to rapidly absorb and reapply force determines performance. By improving elastic energy utilization through skipping, you are essentially upgrading the foundational M coordination and rhythm in skipping rope are driven by precise communication between multiple brain regions and the body, and this is where a lot of the deeper benefits come from. When you're skipping, your brain has to synchronize the rotation of the rope with the timing of your jumps, while also maintaining posture and balance. That might sound simple, but it's actually a high-level motor task that engages the cerebellum, motor cortex, and sensory systems all at once. The cerebellum plays a central role here because it's responsible for fine-tuning movement and timing. Each time the rope passes under your feet, your brain is predicting when that moment will occur and adjusting your movement in advance. This predictive timing is what allows the movement to feel smooth rather than reactive. As you practice, the brain becomes more accurate in these predictions, reducing errors like tripping on the rope or mistiming your jump. There's also an important interaction between your visual system and proprioception, which is your sense of where your body is in space. Even if you're not directly looking at the rope, your brain is constantly tracking its position and speed. At the same time, receptors in your muscles and joints are feeding back information about limb position and tension. The integration of these signals allows you to maintain a steady rhythm without consciously thinking about each movement. Over time, this process leads to what's called motor learning. Movements that initially require a lot of conscious effort become automatic. This is because the neural circuits responsible for the task become more efficient, requiring less energy and less active attention. That's why experienced individuals can skip for long periods while holding a conversation or thinking about something else. The coordination has been offloaded to more automatic systems in the brain. Another key element is cadence, or the consistency of your movement timing. Skipping naturally enforces a rhythm because the rope provides immediate feedback. If your timing is off, even slightly, the rope will catch. This kind of instant feedback is extremely valuable for learning because it allows the brain to quickly correct errors and refine movement patterns. In neuroscience, this is known as error-based learning, and it's one of the fastest ways to improve motor skills. This improvement in coordination doesn't stay isolated to skipping. It transfers to other movements. especially those that require timing and sequencing, like running, lifting weights, or playing sports. The brain becomes better at organizing complex movement patterns, which can make other physical activities feel smoother and more controlled. There's also a balance component involved. Each jump requires you to stabilize your body on a relatively small base of support, often on the balls of your feet. This challenges the small stabilizing muscles in the ankles and hips, as well as the vestibular system, which helps control balance and spatial orientation. As these systems improve, you gain better control over your body and motion, reducing unnecessary wobbling or energy leaks. An often overlooked aspect is how skipping encourages symmetry. Because the movement is repetitive and rhythmic, it can expose imbalances between the left and right sides of the body. With consistent practice, the body tends to self-correct, leading to more even distribution of force and better overall alignment. Cardiovascular density in skipping rope comes from how quickly and efficiently it challenges both the heart and lungs within a very short time frame. Unlike many traditional forms of cardio, skipping doesn't allow for much passive recovery within the movement itself. The body is in a constant cycle of effort and rebound, which creates a sustained demand for oxygen and energy delivery. As soon as you begin skipping, your heart rate rises rapidly. This happens because multiple muscle groups are working simultaneously, including the calves, quads, hamstrings, shoulders, and forearms. Even though the movement seems small, the continuous nature of the exercise creates a cumulative effect that drives cardiovascular demand upward. The heart responds by increasing cardiac output, which is the amount of blood pumped per minute, ensuring that oxygen and nutrients are delivered efficiently to the working muscles. At the same time, your respiratory system is pushed to adapt. Breathing rate increases to match the body's need for oxygen and to remove carbon dioxide. Over repeated sessions, this improves what's known as aerobic capacity, or the ability to sustain effort over time. Your body becomes better at using oxygen, which translates to improved endurance, not just in skipping, but in other activities like running or cycling. What makes skipping particularly effective is its ability to bridge both aerobic and anaerobic systems. At a moderate pace, you're primarily training the aerobic system, which relies on oxygen to produce energy. But as you increase speed or intensity, especially during short bursts, the body begins to rely more on anaerobic pathways. These pathways generate energy quickly, but also produce metabolic byproducts like lactate. Training in this zone improves your tolerance to fatigue and your ability to recover quickly between efforts. This dual stimulation is what gives skipping its density. In a relatively short session, you can achieve benefits that might take much longer with lower intensity exercises. For example, a few minutes of fast-paced skipping can elevate heart rate to levels comparable to sprinting, making it highly time efficient for improving cardiovascular fitness. Another important factor is the consistency of effort. In many forms of cardio, there are micro breaks or variations in intensity that allow partial recovery. Skipping, especially when done with good rhythm, maintains a steady demand on the system. This continuous workload forces the heart and lungs to adapt more aggressively, leading to improvements in both stroke volume and overall efficiency. There's also an element of coordination that increases cardiovascular demand. Because your brain is actively engaged in maintaining rhythm and timing, there's a slight increase in overall energy expenditure compared to more monotonous activities. This adds to the total load placed on the system, further enhancing the training effect. Over time, these adaptations lead to a lower resting heart rate, improved circulation, and better energy utilization. Everyday tasks begin to feel easier because your cardiovascular system is more capable of handling physical stress. The efficiency gained means you can perform more work with less perceived effort, which is one of the clearest signs of improved fitness. Ankle mobility and stiffness balance is a critical, often overlooked component of efficient movement, and skipping rope directly trains this balance in a very practical way. The ankle joint needs to be both mobile and stable at the same time, which might sound contradictory, but it's essential for proper force transfer and injury prevention. Mobility refers to the ability of the ankle to move through its full range, particularly dorsiflexion, where the knee moves forward over the toes, and plantar flexion, where the foot points downward. Many people have limited dorsiflexion due to prolonged sitting, restrictive footwear, or lack of movement variability. This restriction can alter movement patterns, forcing other joints like the knees or hips to compensate, often leading to discomfort or injury over time. Skipping addresses this by repeatedly moving the ankle through a natural, dynamic range. Each jump requires a quick transition from dorsiflexion on landing to plantar flexion during takeoff. This repeated motion acts as a kind of active mobilization, encouraging the joint to maintain or even improve its usable range. Unlike static stretching, this type of movement is more transferable to real-world activities because it integrates mobility with load and timing. At the same time, skipping develops what's known as stiffness, which in this context refers to the ability of the joint and surrounding tissues to resist excessive deformation when force is applied. When your foot hits the ground, you don't want the ankle to collapse or absorb too much energy. Instead, you want it to behave like a spring, stable enough to handle impact, but responsive enough to rebound quickly. This stiffness is largely governed by the tendons and the small stabilizing muscles around the joint. The balance between mobility and stiffness is what allows for efficient force transfer. If the ankle is too stiff in the wrong way, meaning it lacks mobility, you lose the ability to absorb force properly, which can increase stress on other joints. On the other hand, if it's too loose or unstable, you lose energy during movement, making actions like running or jumping less efficient and more fatiguing. Skipping trains this balance by imposing consistent, moderate loads in a rhythmic pattern. The body adapts by improving both the control and responsiveness of the ankle joint. You start to land more softly and spring back more quickly, which is a sign that the system is becoming more efficient. There's also a proprioceptive element involved. The small muscles around the ankle are constantly making micro-adjustments to maintain balance and alignment. This enhances joint awareness, which is crucial for preventing missteps or awkward landings that could lead to injury. Over time, this increased awareness becomes automatic, allowing for more confident and controlled movement. These adaptations have direct implications for everyday function and athletic performance. Improved ankle mobility allows for better squat depth, smoother walking and running mechanics, and reduced strain on the knees and hips. Enhanced stiffness ensures that energy is conserved and redirected effectively, which is especially important in activities that require quick, repetitive movements. Bone loading and durability is one of the most important long-term benefits of skipping, especially when it comes to maintaining structural integrity as the body ages. Unlike muscles, which can adapt relatively quickly, bone is a living tissue that responds more slowly but very powerfully to the right kind of stimulus. That stimulus is mechanical load, particularly the kind that comes from repeated low-level impact. When you skip rope, each landing creates a small force that travels through the foot, ankle, and up into the skeletal system. This force is not excessive, but it is consistent and rhythmic. That consistency is what signals bone cells to adapt. Specifically, it activates osteoblasts, which are responsible for building new bone tissue. Over time, this leads to increased bone mineral density, making bones stronger and more resistant to fractures. This process is known as mechanotransduction, where mechanical stress is converted into a biological response. The key factor is that the loading has to be dynamic. Static forces, like simply standing or holding a weight without movement, don't create the same effect. Skipping provides rapid cycles of loading and unloading, which is exactly what bone tissue responds to most effectively. Another important aspect is the distribution of force. Because skipping typically involves landing on the balls of the feet and maintaining an upright posture, the forces are spread efficiently across the skeletal system. This reduces the likelihood of localized stress while still providing enough stimulus to promote adaptation. Over time, the bones in the lower body, particularly in the feet, tibia, and hips, become more robust. There's also an interaction between bone and muscle that makes this even more beneficial. As muscles contract during skipping, they pull on the bones, adding another layer of mechanical stress. This combination of impact and muscular force creates a more comprehensive signal for bone strengthening compared to either stimulus alone. Consistency is crucial for this adaptation. Bone responds best to regular, repeated exposure rather than occasional high-intensity stress. Skipping fits well into this model because it can be performed frequently without excessive fatigue or recovery demands. Even relatively short sessions, done consistently, can contribute to long-term improvements in bone health. This becomes increasingly important with age, as bone density naturally declines over time. Reduced bone density is a major risk factor for fractures, particularly in areas like the hips and spine. Incorporating activities that promote bone loading can slow or even partially reverse this decline, helping to maintain independence and mobility later in life. There's also a durability aspect beyond just density. Repeated exposure to controlled impact helps condition the skeletal system to handle everyday forces more effectively. This means that unexpected stresses, like a misstep or sudden change in direction, are less likely to result in injury because the bones and surrounding structures are better prepared to absorb and distribute force. In addition, skipping encourages proper alignment and posture during movement, which ensures that forces travel through the body in a balanced way. This reduces uneven wear and tear on joints and contributes to overall structural resilience. Efficiency and accessibility are what make skipping rope uniquely powerful compared to many other forms of training because it removes nearly all the common barriers that prevent consistency. Most physical adaptations in the body, whether cardiovascular, neurological, or structural, depend far more on regular exposure than on occasional high effort. Skipping makes that regularity much easier to achieve. From an efficiency standpoint, skipping compresses multiple training benefits into a single activity. You're simultaneously engaging the cardiovascular system, training coordination, reinforcing elastic movement, and stimulating bone and joint health. In most training environments, these qualities are developed separately, requiring different exercises, equipment, and time blocks. Skipping consolidates them, allowing you to get a broad physiological stimulus in a fraction of the time. This efficiency also shows up in how quickly you can reach an effective intensity. Within seconds, your heart rate can rise significantly, and your body is fully engaged. There's no long setup, no need to warm up with complex movements, and no transition between exercises. This makes it particularly useful for people who have limited time but still want meaningful training. Accessibility is the other side of this equation. A jump rope is inexpensive, portable, and requires very little space. You can use it indoors or outdoors, making it adaptable to different environments and schedules. This removes logistical friction, which is one of the main reasons people fail to maintain a consistent exercise routine. When something is easy to start, you're far more likely to do it regularly. There's also a low barrier to entry in terms of skill, but a high ceiling for progression. Beginners can start with simple, slow jumps and short durations, focusing on basic timing and coordination. As skill improves, intensity and complexity can be increased without needing new equipment. You can vary speed, introduce footwork patterns, or extend duration, allowing the same tool to remain effective across different fitness levels. Another important aspect is scalability in terms of physical stress. Skipping can be adjusted to be low impact or high intensity depending on how it's performed. Small, controlled jumps minimize joint stress while still providing a cardiovascular and coordination benefit. On the other hand, faster or more explosive variations can significantly increase demand. This flexibility allows individuals to tailor the activity to their current condition, whether they are recovering, maintaining, or pushing performance. Because it's simple and repeatable, skipping also lends itself well to habit formation. The fewer decisions and obstacles involved, the easier it is to integrate into a daily routine. Over time, this consistency compounds, leading to meaningful improvements in health and performance without requiring large disruptive changes to one's lifestyle. In a broader sense, efficiency and accessibility together determine whether a tool is actually useful in the real world. Many training methods are effective in theory, but fail in practice because they are too complex, time-consuming, or restrictive. Skipping avoids these issues by being straightforward, adaptable, and highly effective across multiple domains of fitness. Another important aspect is scalability in terms of physical stress. Skipping can be adjusted to be low impact or high intensity depending on how it's performed. Small, controlled jumps minimize joint stress while still providing a cardiovascular and coordination benefit. On the other hand, faster or more explosive variations can significantly increase demand. This flexibility allows individuals to tailor the activity to their current condition, whether they are recovering, maintaining, or pushing performance. Because it's simple and repeatable, skipping also lends itself well to habit formation. The fewer decisions and obstacles involved, the easier it is to integrate into a daily routine. Over time, this consistency compounds, leading to meaningful improvements in health and performance without requiring large, disruptive changes to one's lifestyle. What this ultimately means is that skipping isn't just an exercise, it's a highly efficient system for maintaining and upgrading multiple aspects of human performance at once. When something is this accessible and this effective, the limiting factor is no longer the method itself, but whether it's used consistently enough to allow those adaptations to take place.